Hi everyone, I'm extremely pleased to welcome you all to this session on exploring EV retrofitting opportunity in India in association with EMF Innovations. In the recent few months, as an industry observer, we have noticed a significant increase in the interest and conversations around retrofitting for different vehicle categories, such as two-wheelers, three-wheelers, even LCVs and buses. Today there are multiple companies in India and startups who are actively exploring retrofitting opportunities. Although currently there is no central government support for retrofitting, but some of the state level policies are more inclusive of retrofits. For example, Delhi government recently approved that 10-year-old ICE vehicles can be retrofitted to EVs and allowed to ply. And Telangana state government also announced plans to provide a special incentive for converting old auto rickshaws to electric. So the aim of this event is to explore the overall market opportunity in retrofitment. What are the economic incentives of doing that? What should be the engineering approach? And what is the regulatory framework around retrofits? And we have a distinguished set of speakers from the industry and consulting space who will be sharing their perspective on different aspects related to retrofitment. So let me welcome our expert speakers for the day. Mr. Pritesh Singh from Nomura Research Institute. Mr. Deepak MV from eTrio will be joining in a short while. We have Ms. Siv Sankari TP from EMF Innovations, Mr. Avinash Reddy from Envirosmart, and Mr. Manoj Desai from ARAI. So all the speakers have between 10 to 15 minutes to present on their particular topics. And after the speaker slot, we'll have an open session to take audience questions. In the meanwhile, you can put your questions in the Q&A box. So without any ado, let me welcome Mr. Pritesh Singh to share his take on the overall market opportunity in EV retrofitting. Over to you, Pritesh.
Thank you very much, Priyakshi. So let me try to present my screen. Let me know if my presentation is visible.
Yes, Pritesh, it's visible.
Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about my views about retrofitment market in India. And we have distinguished experts from the industry who will be talking mainly about technicalities of the retrofitment, as well as Mr. Desai can talk about the policy. So I'll mostly discuss three things. One is about the need for retrofitment in India. And second is about imperatives of current policy push on future EV retrofitment market and the future direction and evolution of EV retrofitment market in India. Because drive towards electrification, or the push towards electrification, the pure electrification, which we call, and the retrofitment basically can address the challenges which nationally government of India is facing. And most of the policies, when we talk about any kind of alternate fuel, is kind of linked with these national objectives. So if I talk about the national objectives, we have three national objectives, which is handling the energy security, because we are currently importing more than 85% of the imports, and it has huge amount of burden on the imports, which is around $111 billion if I talk about the 2019 numbers. Then the import dependency. We are still importing raw materials and components despite a lot of development towards manufacturing component industry. And then the carbon emissions part. India is the fourth largest CO2 emitter in the world. Our Prime Minister has committed net zero CO2 emissions by 2070. So again, this becomes very important at this point in time. Now, India has moved towards pure electrification because electrification has potential to address all these challenges, at least in the long term. But with increasing number of vehicles which are going out of the road, if they are retrofitted, they can also address all these challenges. For example, energy security. So I am using the numbers which are provided by Altigreen for their hybrid retrofitment systems. So for different vehicles which they have converted into electric, which they have basically retrofitted, gives more than 24 to 25% of the mileage efficiency. If you correlate with the high number of vehicles, retrofitted vehicles in future, it has a lot of potential to kind of save a lot of oil imports. Let's have a look on the manufacturing import dependence in India. Despite huge amount of focus as well as the dedicated efforts by the government of India, especially Department of Heavy Industries, also the movement by the industry players. If we talk about the passenger vehicle small car market, so look at the numbers in terms of the net localization. So this net localization is the localization, direct and indirect localization, which is very less till now. Now, because currently there are two sets of vehicle, right? One is fossil fuel based technology like ethanol, flex fuel, CNG, etc. And then we have electrification based technology, hybrid vehicles and pure electric. Now we also add EV retrofitment. So currently, obviously, import share is very high and limited local procurement possibility, but components are common. So if EV retrofitment industry also picks up, then the core agenda on which Government of India is working, which is the localization, can also be very well addressed. So now I will move to the imperatives of the policy push on future retrofitment market. So now, if you look at the last year numbers, or if we just focus on this year numbers, it seems that EVs are now picking up, and in future, we are definitely going to have a lot of EVs. So no doubt about it. By let's say 2025, 2030, a significant number of EVs across the vehicle segments are going to be there. This is just, let's have a look on the EUIO number of, it's 30 million plus, right, for passenger vehicle, which today or tomorrow is going to be available for retrofitted. So numbers are very high. So if just we kind of link the government direction and imperatives. So there are three emerging scope for retrofitment. One is about huge used ICE vehicle park. Second is about many use cases like school transportation, etc., which are not touched in under FAME due to poor affordability of fully built new EVs focus. Then third is about the cost competitiveness through local EV component supply. And these three are kind of a scope for retrofitment. By 2030, more than 20% of the total UIO is going to be kind of available for retrofitment, which shows that a huge number of vehicles are available, which can possibly be converted and address the three national challenges, which I talked about in the beginning. Let's have a look on the buses segment. So intercity transport, intracity transport, tourist, employee transport, school transport, and other applications are there. But if let's have a look on the tourist, employee transportation, and school transport, these are not kind of covered under FAME. But if we based on our calculation, there is a financial feasibility, and the cost of retrofitting is also less, and the charging infrastructure cost is also much lesser in compared to intercity and intracity transportation. Ease of implementation is slightly difficult, but if you look at the advantage which we can get in terms of cost and in terms of retrofitment cost as well as the charging infrastructure cost is much more. So buses are basically the target use case which require to carry less load at fixed speed and over fixed routes. So which makes this a very kind of attractive and viable case. So let's say if we talk about the load requirement, so comparing passenger buses and proposed school buses, it's 58% less. In terms of the speed, it's 50% less. In terms of routes, it's again only 40 kilometers in a day. However, it's 250 kilometers for the passenger buses. The time, there is ample amount of time between trips, and the land availability is also there. So how it impacts basically all the components, right? We have less load, which means we can manage with low motor and battery specifications. Fixed speed means low motor specifications. Fixed routes, which means low battery capacity. And the time between trips is very high. So we can manage with slow charging for the applications such as school transportation, school buses. So overall impact, if you look, low specifications, cost optimized, and retrofitted buses. Low cost charging infrastructure, and it's easy to implement. We have done detailed calculations and analysis to come up with such use case. Which basically indicates much lower cost for manufacturing of vehicle, and also the overall impact in terms of specification, charging infrastructure, and implementation. If we kind of have a look on the TCO of retrofitted electric bus in slow-moving traffic application, then if you compare, like after 3 years, let's say 3.5 years of operations, it becomes better than diesel. And even after 7 years, it becomes much better even from CNG. Again, there are assumptions behind specifications as well as the manufacturing cost for such buses. Now, I'll quickly move to the localization of EV retrofitment. I briefly touched upon it. So now the import duties has been increased, right, on all the critical components which go into the manufacturing of electric vehicle. So that is also applicable on the retrofitted kits. If retrofitted kits are kind of localized in India, then these players can also become part range suppliers or the component suppliers eventually for the new EVs as well. This chart basically talks about, if you look at the y-axis, it's cost contribution, and on x-axis we have plotted localization index of Indian suppliers. So obviously, battery, motor, and inverter remains the critical components. With upcoming PLI and expectation that it's going to be successful, probably in 3 to 5 years, we will have our own cell manufacturing facility. But motor and inverter remains the challenging part, especially for the passenger vehicle kind of applications. But retrofitment market, if picks up, then definitely will help even localizing the motor and the inverter as well. Now, I'll move to the future direction and evolution of EV retrofitment market in India. So if you look at the fully built EVs and divide that into shared and personal. So currently focus is on shared, and I think future is also going to be the shared only. If I talk about the retrofitted EVs, definitely future, currently obviously less focus, but some focus is there on shared, and it is going to pick up. So mostly retrofitted applications are going to be viable in the shared mobility in future, which different companies, including some of the panel members, which are leading those companies, are working on. So in our opinion, in long term, what kind of applications are going to be relevant in passenger in retrofitment market is four-wheeler EVs, mostly for employee transportation kind of applications. Then we have three-wheeler and buses as well as two-wheeler. Definitely these have their different applications. So these are going to be mainstream in long term. So in our opinion, if we just talk about short term, mid term, and long term, how the government and public players can come together and promote retrofitment is that currently pilots are being conducted, right? And the companies are proving the potential of retrofitment. Effort from the government should be somehow finding a way to include and give incentives under FAME, which will give a huge boost to the retrofitment market. And the EVs or any kind of alternate fuel solves the kind of objective and which retrofitment can also solve. In midterm, industry can move towards partnerships, and then they can think of innovating new business models. Because if we just look at the kind of success cases in the pure electrification till now, it's all based on the economic viability of the use cases. So retrofitment is also going to be based on successful use cases. And government can focus on incentives for retrofitment policy. Again, scrappage policy is already there, so some benefit from there. In the long term, aftermarket kit makers can gradually shift to become powertrain supplier. So in the component industry, I think till now, India or maybe any other global market is also, most of the players are gearing up and trying to become a powertrain supplier rather than becoming a component supplier. So the aftermarket kit makers, if volume picks up much faster, then they can gradually shift to become the powertrain supplier. And from government side, conversion of on-road ICE vehicle to xEV by retrofitting. That's all which I have included. Thank you very much.
Everyone, hi Priyakshi, thanks for having us over. So very happy to be part of this panel, and I have my colleague Rajesh, who will be talking about the engineering challenges and approach we have taken. Rajesh, can you share the presentation? Just 1 second while Rajesh shares the presentation.
Sure.
Yeah, so while Rajesh would be talking about it in detail, I'll just set the context from my side. Retrofitment was basically the start point of ETRU. Genesis happened in 2017 when we electrified an existing car. In fact, in the earlier presentation, Pritesh talked about how he's seeing the use cases happening in the four-wheeler, the passenger car domain. So that is precisely what we thought when we founded the organization, and we believed that electrifying existing ICE vehicle would play a critical role, not just in decarbonizing, but also decongesting the engine modes. And we began our journey by electrifying a passenger car in the form of Maruti Alto, and became the first company in the country to get a certificate from ARAI. So that's how we started. In fact, over the past 4 years, we have also, our journey has also seen us from, right from electrification of existing to building new electric vehicles in three-wheeler space. Retrofitment, while we were the pioneers of it, we built products in the passenger cars to start with, but then we also realized that the use case which was emerging was more on the logistics side, and we firmly believe that cargo segment, where many factors, and electrification has to be seen in its entirety, not just focusing on the product. So from that standpoint, we believe that cargo segment offers a unique opportunity. Retrofitment would become a critical method to convert a polluting old asset into a green, efficient asset. And we believe that this would become a new lease of life for the old vehicles. There are millions of old vehicles plying on Indian roads on the cargo side. And we believe that this would give a new lease of life to these old vehicles, extending their life, at the same time saving up to 70% of the operating cost. And that's where we began this cargo electrification through the Tata Ace. We converted a Tata Ace, and this was done in 2019. And this is the product which has given, just go back. This is the product which has given us the acceptance. Today, I'm very happy to share that this product, which was introduced in the market in 2019, and this was a very difficult introduction because the whole industry was skeptical. They were excited and skeptical because we introduced it in the last mile ecosystem of the e-commerce players, and they were all skeptical about how come we as a company, young company, we have a four-wheeler electric, because at that time, even now, there is nobody who has a active running four-wheeler for over a year. So being the first in the market, also a retrofit asset was a new introduction. So there was a lot of skepticism, which could only be circumvented by long trials and demos, which we did with all these e-commerce companies. And today, very happy to share that this product is running successfully over the last 2.5-3 years across multiple locations in the country. Retrofitment, while we are talking about engineering, there are also various other challenges which I'm sure somebody will talk about the regulatory challenges and other challenges which are there. So we were able to slowly work our way through those challenges to ensure that this vehicle is also accepted and accepted at the local level, at the RTO level, at multiple cities. So with this, I would ask Rajesh to step in and talk about the product and talk about how we have engineered this product and built a customized product for the last mile ecosystem in the intra-city space. Over to you, Rajesh.
Thank you very much, Deepak, and good afternoon. So myself, Rajesh, and I'm working in Etraya as an I'm taking care of E&D. Here we have developed a retrofitment vehicle, and we are the first, and we are happy to say that we are the first in India who developed this Tata Ace retrofitment. And so while doing the retrofitment, we feel that it's not just a kit, connecting a kit.
Rajesh, if you can spend a little while on the spec sheet so that just people get an understanding of how the vehicle is spec'd.
Okay. Yes, so this is one of the vehicle what we have converted, and this is best in class in our company side. So where we are working on the LFP technology, and the system voltage is 96 volts, and when we have certified, it is coming close to 100 plus in terms of mileage at the certification, but in the ground reality, it's coming close to 90 to 100 range. And
yeah, certification is 120 kilometers certified, and on the ground with a payload of around 500 to 700 kgs, we are seeing a consistent mileage of around 90 to 100 kilometers.
Yes. And in this retrofitment vehicle, we have seen so many issues. I mean, not issues, I would say so many improvement points, and we found that there is a lot of scope for improvement, and we started working towards it. It's like a continuous development, and currently we are doing the third generation of vehicle. In the first,
just to add on to what Rajesh is saying is when we built the first vehicle, when we introduced in the market, there was a lot of feedback which we got from the drivers, and we looked at the use cases, the data around the vehicle, and with that we have been able to. I'm very happy to say that with the data, the vehicle has improved dramatically, and within 6 months we were able to introduce the next version of the vehicle, which has today been a high performer in this last mile logistics space. Yeah.
yes. So currently we are working with the third generation vehicle where we are having a liquid cooling mechanism for the battery pack, and gradient climbing. It is capable of climbing up to 10 plus degrees, and with the speed of 55 km/h. Earlier we had given high speed, but later we realized that because of the rapid acceleration, deceleration, drivers are playing this as a toy. So we decided to make it more mature. So we have fine-tuned the vehicle. And now the vehicle is very, very stable, and we are seeing a lot of demand from the market for the present version. And we have installed telematics inside the vehicle, and it is giving a lot of information to us. And we played most of the time with the data, and from there we came to know that how the driver is actually seeing the way, how the driver is actually using the vehicle. So this helped us a lot, and we are continuously developing this evolution. And with the experience of 3 years, we now become a complete OEM of the three-wheelers. We also started complete a three-wheeler electric three-wheeler, and we have so many customers, like 50 plus vehicles already there in the market, and I would say that we crossed more than 3 lakh kilometers in the customer side.
Can you go next?
Next, while doing the retrofitment, we will feel that it's not converting a kit from IC to EV. It's like giving a new life. It's a regeneration of the life to the vehicle. So while doing, at the beginning, we have done this in an organized way, but later we have learned a lot, and we made it a defined process for this, like where we were doing the different steps, like 5-point steps we have implemented. Like one is vehicle inspection, mechanical retrofitment, electrical retrofitment, testing and inspection, and customer delivery. So each and every step, it is having a defined process now, and it is a process oriented way of how we are doing now. And yeah, And with all these things, we could see that there is a life extension 7+ years for the old vehicles. So this is very happy news to share.
So just to add on to what Rajesh just said, the retrofitment essentially starts with the picking up the older vehicle. And this selection itself is very critical because not every vehicle is suitable for a retrofitment. Hence, we have a comprehensive 150-point checklist where we grade the vehicle across multiple aspects and multiple components. The critical parts are chassis and cabin, which is where we use the existing chassis. So we look for, especially out of this 150 points, I think important thing is we look at the strength of the existing chassis. And from there on, of course, it's the process like Rajesh has already defined that we have to strip the vehicle. So again, retrofitment, a lot of people think it's equivalent to a CNG, kit, but electrification of a ICE vehicle retrofitment is a misnomer in many ways. It's actually, like a heart transplant you're doing of the vehicle. So almost 90% of vehicle goes through a replacement or a refurbishment, and which results in creating a completely almost a new vehicle besides the chassis and the cabin. So we strengthen the suspension, the tires, the rims, the suspension, the axle, transmission. Lot of things go through a change, right? Besides the kit I'm talking about. Yeah.
So when it comes to the engineering challenge, from the engineering's point of view, we see that there are major challenges. These are the 8 challenges what we are seeing. So I'll go into detail each one by one. So the first one is drivetrain. So when it comes to the drivetrain, choosing the right drivetrain is very, very critical. And we have to do the design calculations, motor sizing, battery sizing, and how much current or voltage characteristics required, and identifying the right technology like LFP or lead acid. So what is best for this vehicle? And so all this drive selections we'll be doing. So especially like what kind of motor we have to choose, PMSM or I induction motor, what motor fit will for this, and what RPM we have to run this vehicle, and what will be the gearbox selection, what will be the top requirements. So all these things we'll be doing the calculations while we choosing the drivetrain. So based on that, we'll go for the next step, that is called packaging.
Just to add to what he said, like for example, technology upgradation from a motor side. Now the new variant which we are working on is going to be on the PMSM motor. We have been earlier certified and working on the AC induction. I think somebody asked a question, so I thought I'll just pick up this thread and answer that. So similarly, we have done a lot of improvements across the components. Motor was just one example. And like Rajesh already mentioned that going forward, we are looking at a liquid cool because we see the use cases completely exploding the moment you enable a fast charging for this vehicle. Yeah, go ahead, Rajesh.
Yes, so the next one is packaging. So in the new vehicle design, when we are designing any new vehicle, we have the flexibility to choose what package we wanted. But here it is a vehicle is already defined, and we have very, very little flexibility for choosing the package. So we have to play always with the space, whatever is really available there, and we have to best use of the space. So at the same time, we need to ensure that the FAW, RAW, and all the GVW and all these things at the end will come into the CG. So impact on the CG. So we have to maintain proper balancing for all these things. So then only we will be able to deliver the best vehicle. So these are the things we are seeing as a challenge, and we found there is a way to handle it. So we're going in the direction, and vehicle modifications. Yes, we have to do some modifications for fitment of the battery pack, motor, assembly cradles, and harness. So there are a lot of issues for that, but we're happily doing all these things now. And the next one is integration. So when it comes to integration, there are a lot of issues will be there, like from the throttle to brake to motor. So everywhere we have to fine tune properly so that we'll get the optimum performance out of it. So when it comes to motor, what motor we are choosing, that motor performance, and what battery we are choosing, how much current we can take, what will be the DOD, and when it comes to gearbox, what will the ratio we wanted, and what will the speed we needed, at what to get the speed, what will be the RPM we have to maintain at the motor, and how to fine tune with the help of the controller. There will be supervisory system which will monitor all these things. And again, speed limitations we should not violate because our motor is capable of running with high speeds. So we have to keep the point in mind that there is a legal norms. We should not violate that legal norms. And again, braking and regen. So safety. So safety is most critical thing when the temperatures are rising or voltages are going below. Especially from the point of battery, we are seeing a lot of issues in the field, but we never had any issue till now in our vehicles, whatever we have developed or whatever we have delivered. We have not even single case which is related to battery. And the last but not least, error handling. Suppose if there is an issue with the one part and it will raise an alert. So there is a problem with the vehicle. There is a problem with the particular module. So how this information will be shared with all the devices and how the other device will respond to this. So this we have precisely fine-tuned, and now the vehicles are in excellent condition. And I'm seeing the feedback from the customers, the people who worked in Tata AS, and they're coming back and they're very happy compared with their original Tata AS. This EV vehicle is, they're very happy with this vehicle. So this was the feedback I got multiple times. So then the next major challenge is sourcing. Since retrofitment, we see volumes are very less, and identifying the suppliers and contacting the suppliers is a very tough task. But yeah, we have find at the beginning a difficulty, but now we have almost finalized all the local suppliers, and we are working close to the localization of everything. And identifying the right technology is important because we found some suppliers, but they're not having the right technology with them. So this is one more challenge. And we have very limited options at the moment, and most of the time our suppliers also depending on the importing. But now we are finding most of the things in-house, and we are going with the localized suppliers. And the major challenge is lead time. So when we order components, about retrofitment, right? The volumes are very less, and for this lead time and MOQ is most critical. And for small parts, they'll be asking a development cost, and we have to balance the development cost and the product cost. We should not go for the any side. We have to balance optimally. And we do see a support is very minimal because the volumes are very less. But yeah, we are managing with the limited support how to proceed further. Then when it comes to norms, so here I do see the major challenge. Though retrofitment is a thing, but while doing the retrofitment, we have to ensure that our product is certified for the as per the norms which was defined by our government. We should not violate these norms at any point of time. So we'll be doing the certification at ARI ICAT as per AS 123. But after that also again we are seeing some difficulty at the state level approvals. Everywhere we are seeing different states have different approval levels. And the major thing is like the FAME subsidy. Yeah, as you all know that we are not getting much FAME, we are not getting any FAME subsidy for the retrofitment work. So these are the challenges in terms of sourcing MOQ and norms. The next one is charging. Yes, I do see that currently officially we have received a visit from the government is only for the DC001 for the fast charging technology. But yeah, even that also we have very limited info in India, and I do see there is a lot of improvement for this. And currently we have developed retrofitment vehicles which will reuse the existing infrastructure what is available in the city. So we don't need to develop anything new for us. So we would like to use the existing chargers like DC001 chargers. Currently whatever we are there in India, we are reusing the chargers. And adoption to CCS2 and CHAdeMO, I do see there is a lot of scope for improving this because when we are working with the DC001, it is limiting us to work only with the low voltages. But when we are working with the low voltage, you all know that there is a need for high currents. So I do see there is a lot of improvement required on the CCS2 and CHAdeMO side, so that we can play with the higher voltages, so that the current carrying capacity will be reduced, so that wires, all the heating problems can be minimized. Of course, they will come at a cost of safety and all these things. But being an engineer, we should be able to address all these things. And the next and the last, and it is not least. So the major thing is techno commercials. When it comes to techno commercials, I do not see much profits at the moment, but there are a lot of players who are interested to try the new technologies for their portfolios. I mean, for the prototypes, like, so a lot of players we are having, and they're taking products from our side and they're testing the fleet. And yeah, anyway, at the moment we are not working in the commercial side, but of course at the end that is matters to us. And I'll go to the next slide. So how we are doing the retrofitment. So if I wanted to deliver any vehicle, these are the basic things we will ensure that performance, what kind of performance we're giving, is the motor is efficient or not, and the long range we are getting or not, smooth power delivery, how we are handling, and in terms of safety, whether our product is really meeting the safety norms or not. And technology, when it comes to technology, we have developed an app with the help of telematics. And as I mentioned earlier, telematics helped us a lot in for getting the data, and the data played a big role in our product development from version 2 to version 3. And now we have a very good product in our hand. Then, and comfort and warranty, we have to give best comfort to the supplier. Since it is a retrofitment vehicle, they won't accept just like that. So we have to give the best comfort. And warranty, yes, we are giving currently from the e-Trigger side best in class warranty. Almost 1 lakh kilometers warranty we are giving for the retrofitment vehicles. So this is the best part, I would say. And next one. So these are our happy customers who are taking our vehicles and who are using our vehicles. So I can say these are the top 20 customers, but there are a lot of other players who are using our vehicles in the numbers. And currently we are having almost 50 plus vehicles in the field in Hyderabad and Bangalore. Yeah, that's all about from our side. And Deepak, do you have something to add?
I think it's fine. We can stop.
And if you have any questions, we are happy to answer this.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the retrofitting opportunities in India and how EMFI is supporting in doing the retrofitment in two-wheelers, especially in two-wheelers. Okay, as Priyakshi mentioned, EMFI is into the motor manufacturing for electric two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Okay, and apart from that, we have extended our thing into the retrofitment conversion, both the whole electric vehicle and as well as into dual power. Okay, here I am going to present about these are the three main objectives. I'm going to focus on the opportunities in the conversion, okay, and the advantages of EV retrofitting, the challenges in processing all these things. Okay, so over to the first slide, the opportunities in the retrofitment. So first of all, there were many people who were into the field of engineering standards. So once they are coming out of the engineer graduates, they are unable to find out the jobs. Okay, this will become as a better opportunity for them to become as an entrepreneurs. Okay, why so? In the sense, so there are already 36 plus of crore of electric two-wheelers. That it means I see two-wheelers in India, so which will become as a scrap. Okay. So over a period of next 5 to 10 years period, this will become as a scrap. In order to bring up its lifetime to at least to extend it to 5 to 10 years period of time. So this conversion will help them to extend its life period. Okay. So we have given an opportunity in the terms of training for them to become as a dealership. Okay, to take up it as a dealership, and then they can take up training. So which saves the cost, which saves the manpower, which saves the material. So this will help them in terms of getting all the vehicles to be converted into electric two-wheelers or into thing of dual power. Okay, dual power is nothing but so which can be used as an IC engine, which can be used as an electric version also. Okay, why we are going for dual power in the sense when by checking it whether the IC engine is capable of running for a short period of time, we can completely convert to an additional thing of electric vehicle too. So this will help to experience the people to experience it to be an electric vehicle also. So this will help to go for an easy adoption of the vehicles. Okay, and also it serves the cost to make it as an electric vehicle to be to at least 55,000 to 60,000 only. It will take time. Okay. So and then next thing is reduction of the substantial amount of the virgin material can be done. So then substantial amount of energy will be saved on this. Okay. So since India has utilized its conversion into the three-wheelers only, I have not considered into the two-wheelers parts. If you are getting subsidy in the conversion of the electric two-wheelers, then it will become as a big thing for the fast adoption of electric two-wheelers. Okay. So in terms of the pollution, controlling the pollutions, converting all these vehicles to electric, or it may be a dual power, this will be helpful for them. So in terms of the conversion, what kind of challenges that we process in EMF is, so converting all these vehicles, we need to have a special thing of engine that need to be changed. Okay, the motor need to be changed. So in terms of the designing and modifications, and in terms of the thermal management, because in the dual power, so the IC engine will be running, so the motor will get heat up. Okay, so the inside the motor, we are using some complications of Hall sensor and those things. So those will get according to the IC standards which has been given. So and getting this conversion will be a hardest part if it is not just like in a DIY process. Okay, so according to the AS standards 123 standards, what it has been proposed is to convert into an electric vehicle, it should not be a cut, we should not drill, we should not grind, or we should not weld. Okay, any of the things in order to protect the strength of the vehicle. So we have to do all these things. This will be an issue when we are going for the conversion process. Okay, so we do provide, what EMF does is, we do training for people in converting these vehicles. Okay, and we do guidance to these people while we are providing training to them. So we do provide it as a complete conversion kit for them. So and also be support them in the conversion of terms of opportunity after taking training with us. We do support them in terms of modification and fixing all these issues into the field itself. Okay, and we do support them in order to take the approval process with the government thing also, and we'll also help them to do the child parts assembly. Okay, wherever it is needed, we help them in sourcing all the child parts too. So this the supports will be done by EMF in contributing the retrofitment. Okay, so may I know any other queries? If you need, please let us know. So I'll share you a video which we have did recently, the converting of the a scooter. Yeah.
Ignition, we can say red light is displaying in the display. So this is for engine mode. So we can able to switch on the if we want to change in EV mode, we can press this green color button. So after pressing this green color button, engine will be cut off, and we can see a green color light is displaying here. So this is the battery percentage indicator. We can see how many battery percentage is there and how much voltage is available. So we can see in this display. So now we are ready to ride in EV mode. We are having a reverse option also available here. If we pull this button, we can see this on the here. So this is for reverse indication. So if we close the button, the beep option will be cut off. That is placed inside the luggage box with the belt, so we can able to lock the battery, and metal plate is placed below the battery. So this used to provide press for the battery, so the battery cannot move
So this is all about which I have shared. So we have not only converted this scooter, we have even converted the motorcycle too. So whatever the vehicle that is being given as a two-wheeler, that we can do as a conversion. Okay, we can do support in terms of training whenever it is required. Please contact us. We can help people. So the most important things in order to avoid the pollution, so in order to use the material to extend its lifetime, so we are doing all these things to make people to evolve themselves as an entrepreneur. So this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sankari. Just one question. If you could clarify what you mean by a dual power scooter versus what is a hybrid? Are those same things? Or if you can just clarify for our audience, how is dual power scooter different from what we call a hybrid vehicle?
Yeah. So sure, Priakshi. Dual power vehicle is nothing but we can use it as both the IC engine. So we can completely run it into the fuel base. Okay. And it can be run into both the electric version and as well as the IC version, that is said to be the dual power vehicle. Hybrid is nothing but, so hybrid can be used when we are going in the lower speed. Okay, at the time it will be using the electric version. Okay, when we are going for the higher speed versions, so this will be automatically using the fuel. So that is said to be the hybrid vehicle. So what we are doing is not a hybrid vehicle, it is a dual power vehicle, whether it can be completely used as an IC engine vehicle with the fuel base, or it can be completely used as an fully electric vehicles. Whatever the options and the facilities is present in an EV vehicle can be given in the dual power vehicle also. So I said in the video which they have explained here is the reverse option also is possible in an dual power vehicles, so which helps in the parking assistance. This will be more helpful. So and also it enables the charging of the thing. So charging the entire vehicle when it is been out of power. So with the IC engine, it is possible to do the charging for the electric vehicle. So both the way we can utilize it. People can have experience of both the IC engine vehicle and as well as the EV vehicle. This will help them into the adoption of EV.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Sankari. And I think there are a few questions for you in the Q&A box and some on chat as well. Will be great if you could have a look.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So good afternoon, all. I am Avinash Reddy from my organization, Eurosmart. So I'd first like to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on the topic, economic incentives for retrofitment. So today I'll be speaking a bit about how the retrofitment, what are the economic incentives for the retrofitment and how they compare with respect to an IC engine vehicle and a new electric vehicle. So to give a brief about my company, so Eurosmart started working in the retrofitment space for about 2.5 years now. We are predominantly in three-wheeler retrofitment, where we have retrofitted both three-wheeler passenger and cargo vehicles, which are both certified by ARAI. We are also working on two-wheeler and four-wheeler LCV retrofitment as well. So, and we are right now operating in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and we plan to expand towards Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra states as well. And first, I'll start with comparing IC vehicle and versus a retrofitted vehicle in a three-wheeler scenario. So first, let's look at the operational costs which are involved in retrofitment EVs and in IC vehicles. So taking a three-wheeler vehicle, IC vehicle first, I'll have a few assumptions in place here, which is the fuel cost, the distance traveled by an average passenger auto person, and the mileage of the vehicle, and total operational days in the month. So taking all these assumptions and market values into consideration, we arrive at the running cost for retrofitted, for ICE vehicles to be around 4 rupees per kilometer. And the maintenance cost would be around 55 paisa per kilometer. So the total operation cost on kilometer is around 4 rupees 55 paisa for an ICE three-wheeler vehicle, which is about 5 years old. So I just want to want everyone to keep in mind that we will not be retrofitting new vehicles. Usually the retrofitment is done for a slightly older vehicle, which is around 5 to 10 years old, or maybe older, depending on the vehicle condition. And then if we take a new a retrofitted electric vehicle, or even a new electric vehicle, you get a total operational cost of around 50 paisa per kilometer, where we take a range of 110 kilometers for the EV, three-wheeler EV, and electric tariff of 7 rupees based on Telangana tariff rates. And based on these two comparisons, we get the savings for a three-wheeler passenger vehicle before and after retrofitment. Post retrofitment, these are the savings you have here right in front of you, which is per kilometer you have a savings of about around 4 rupees, and per year it's about 1.3 lakhs, and over the course of 5 years around 6.6 lakhs. So now this is one table which I have here, which shows the cost of ownership. It needs a slight explanation to do. When you're talking about the cost of ownership, we'll have to take into consideration the present cost of the vehicle which we are retrofitting, and after 5 years, when the life of the battery is usually for 5 years. So after 5 years, what is the replacement cost of the battery, and what is the resale value of the vehicle which goes into it. So taking all these into consideration, we have a 5-year-old passenger auto is usually 70,000, and after a 10-year-old would be around 50,000. And the operational cost, which we calculated earlier, is around 7.5 lakhs. So the total cost of ownership of these 5 years would be the initial vehicle value, the operational cost, subtracted with the vehicle resale value, which is around 7.7 lakhs in total. And if you do the same thing for the retrofitted vehicle, so the resale value, the initial resale value is 2.3 lakhs. This is because you add in the vehicle value of ICE vehicle, and then you add the retrofitment cost of three-wheeler passenger vehicle, which is around 1.6 lakhs. And after 5 years, you need to consider the battery replacement cost, which is about 1 lakh. And once the battery is replaced, the vehicle resale value would be around 1.5 lakhs, because you add the vehicle resale value of IC vehicle with the battery cost. So it's around 1.5 lakh. And the total operation cost for these 5 years are around 90,000 for a retrofitted vehicle. So if you're using these calculations, total savings for retrofitted vehicle over IC vehicle is around 5 lakhs in the span of 5 years after the sale of purchase and sale of IC vehicles or retrofitted vehicle is considered. And now we'll come to the topic of retrofitment versus new EVs. So let's take a quick look at the cost components which go into new EVs. So we have majorly the powertrain, battery, charger, the components, chassis, and body. Here we are considering two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheeler light commercial vehicles. We are not taking the four-wheeler cars or higher vehicles, because in these cases the component costs vary highly depending on the type of comfort you're giving and other aspects. And we are not considering the distribution, logistics, and any government taxes into this. So taking these, we get about 45 to 50% of cost of the EV is about the battery or the charger, and the remaining 25% is the powertrain, and around 20 to 25% is again chassis and the body, and the slight other components like electrical systems and all, which constitute about 8%. And in case of retrofitment, you have the highest cost goes to the battery or chargers, which constitute about 60%. The increase here is because the cost of retrofitment is lower than the cost of a new electric vehicle. I'll come to the actual cost in my next slide, where we compare the actual cost of a retrofitted vehicle to the new vehicle. And so as taking other components and taking the retrofitment cost, which includes the actual refurbishment cost and other things based on the vehicle condition, would be around 5 to 10%. Because the body might be rusted, so you'll have to maybe do some kind of refurbishment and repairs in the vehicle in case of retrofitment. So when you take into consideration the economic benefits of the retrofitment over the new electric vehicles, so we can look at it from two standpoints. One is from the manufacturing standpoint or the retrofitment standpoint, where you have for retrofitment, the setup cost is much lower. It requires lesser capital cost. The freight cost is very minimal, especially in case of 2 and 3 wheelers. It's usually localized. Retrofitment is usually localized. You don't have to carry the vehicles around. And operation cost and manpower requirement is lower. The certification cost compared to a new electric vehicle, retrofitment cost is lower. And you have lesser inventory maintenance. You don't have to purchase chassis in bulk and store them. So all these savings which you talk about here in case of manufacturing of new electric vehicle, they will be carried out and add to the reduced cost of retrofitment compared to a new electric vehicle. So all these costs will basically increase, jack up the prices of new electric vehicles at the end of the day. And ownership standpoints, obviously the cost of retrofitment is much lower compared to purchasing new electric vehicle, even if you add the vehicle cost of the existing vehicle also into that. And it can be performed locally, like I've just said before. And it uses old vehicles, so there's no disposal cost. So what I meant by disposal cost here is you don't have to pay for usually when you sell the vehicle, you'll have to pay for the agent, you'll have to pay, allocate time for selling your vehicle. So all these additional costs which involve in selling your vehicle will also be mitigated. So this slide explains what the comparison between newer EVs and retrofitted vehicles. So the vehicle cost is of a new electric vehicle after FAME subsidy, where it is around 3 lakhs. If I'm talking about a similar vehicle, a 3-wheeler similar vehicle, which is retrofitted, giving out the same specs, having the same specs. So this might be slightly different from different companies which are offering the new EVs, but I've taken an average price of 3 lakhs, which matches the specs of the retrofitted vehicle which we are providing. So after 5 years, let's say the battery, we'll be using the same batteries. If we're comparing both the vehicles have the same powertrain, the same battery, we'll be using the battery after 5 years. The performance of the battery will come down drastically. So the cost of 1 lakh, which you are considering here for the battery, is something which might change after 5 years. We are taking the current price of the battery here. This can increase based on depending on increase in material cost or labor cost, or it can decrease based depending on how much of it is actually localized after 5 years. And the vehicle resale value after battery replacement is something which you are considering taking the electric ICE vehicles as a base point. And the operational cost would be the same for both electric vehicles and retrofitted vehicles. It's the same. The complete interior is anyhow completely new in electric vehicles compared to new vehicles. So the operational cost involved would be almost same. So the total cost of ownership is not after 5 years is around 50,000 between electric vehicle and retrofitted vehicle. Compared to ICE vehicle, it's significantly lower. But if you take electric vehicle and retrofitted, the major things which you notice here is the immediate upfront cost is much lower. It's around 70,000 or so is lower. And this after considering the FAME subsidy for new electric vehicles. In retrofitted vehicles, you don't have the FAME subsidy. Even then, there's a difference here. And once the FAME subsidy is included in retrofitment, or in future, if the FAME subsidy is taken out from the new electric vehicles, you'll see a much significant increase in this number, difference in this number. So even after 5 years, the overall difference is not much because the value of the electric vehicle is anyhow going to come down. The resale value is anyhow going to come down, both in case of retrofitted vehicle and a new electric vehicle. So the net savings would be around 50,000 in a 3-wheeler. So this is it from my side. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to answer them the best I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Avinash. Thank you for that informative presentation. Yes, there are a lot of questions in the Q&A and chat, but I think your presentation answered quite a lot of them. So just feel free to have a look on rest of the questions. Okay. Yes. So after this, we'll move on to another very interesting topic of regulatory framework around retrofitted vehicles. and RTO endorsement. So let me invite Mr. Manoj Desai from ARAI to discuss the regulatory requirements for retrofitment kits and vehicles. Over to you, Mr. Desai.
Yeah, thank you, Priyakshi. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I will be covering the part of retrofitment. So my presentation will cover the solution for in-use vehicle, what type of vehicles we can convert, why retrofitment. I think most of the panelists are full of retrofitment kits and the vehicle part. So what options we have for the older vehicles? Like you might have heard the news, like in certain part of the India or certain cities, the older vehicles will not be allowed. So what we can do is either we can convert them to hybrid to get the fuel economy benefit, or you can convert into pure electric. So that is also one of the option to increase, because the diesel vehicles will not be allowed after 10 years and the petrol vehicles after 15 years of its age. So it's better to convert them so that we can continue utilizing that vehicle. Now, what kind of vehicles can be converted? Almost all. So initially, when we started writing these standards, we were focusing on especially M1 and N1 category, like car and load carrier vehicle. But as and when there were a number of cases for the conversion, which you have already seen here, like two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or even bus and truck application. So slowly we amended the standards to cover all these types of vehicles. So today, if we look at this AI standard, this covers all this type of L category, M category, as well as N category vehicles, which can be converted either in hybrid or pure electric. Now, importance I will skip, because almost all the presentations, the panelists, they have covered, like what benefit they get in terms of two-wheeler or three-wheeler or a passenger car or a load vehicle, in terms of economical benefit also, or ROI kind of benefits also, they have explained nicely. The one thing which I would like to highlight is, since you are adding an electric motor, so the energy which anyhow it will be lost in a braking, so that can be converted and utilized to charge the battery. So regenerative braking you can implement by adding the electric motor. So that is one of the advantage. And the second is, as the panelists explained, like most of this motor, controller, and battery, BMS, other technologies are available. So instead of designing an entire vehicle right from scratch, if the already available on-road vehicle can be converted. So that is also one of the benefit to switch to the electric mobility. Now, coming to the regulation part, we have three standards: AIS 123, Part 1 and 2, 3. I will explain in details. But the total type approval procedure is in two steps. First step itself is a kit component level approval. So all the component aggregates which are adding in the vehicle. So it is a traction motor, battery, the inverter, the wiring harness, various connector, state of charge indicator, any other electronics such as vehicle control unit, onboard charger. So those aggregate component needs to be approved first as a kit, as a hybrid electric kit or a electric kit, pure electric conversion kit. And then the vehicle the company has to submit a retrofitted vehicle, the target vehicle where they want to put this kit. So that vehicle, which is a in-use vehicle, which is running on the road, so that vehicle they have to convert with this kit and submit it to the test agency, so that all other tests on the vehicle can be performed. And then once this second portion is done, the complete type approval for that kit for that particular type of vehicle is issued. And based on that, the kit supplier or kit manufacturer can appoint dealers in various cities, and on the behalf of the kit manufacturer, the dealers can retrofit the vehicle of that type whenever the user approaches them. Now look at the standards. So the Part 1, 1 to 3, Part 1 standard talks about hybrid conversion of smaller vehicles, especially L category, means 2-3 wheelers, as well as M and N category vehicles less than 3.5 tons. So all smaller vehicles are taken care by this Part 1 standard. So basically the standard clearly gives the scope. It defines like what kind of vehicles can be done, what should be its IC engine certified initially for emission, exhaust emission. So BS2 and above vehicles can be converted. At present, it is only for gasoline or diesel older vehicle, but I'm sure like even biodiesel or ethanol can be converted. So right now the gaseous fuel vehicles are not addressed, but I think in coming amendments, we might also think of adding the original or OEM gas vehicle, like OEM, so can be converted in due course of time to the hybrid or electrification. So right now we are not added a gaseous coolant, but petrol and diesel, biodiesel or ethanol kind of vehicle, which is older, can be converted. And this part one is up to 3.5 ton vehicles only. So it defines the hybrid electric system. It means it's an aggregate of component which you're adding without modifying or changing the fuel type of base vehicle or base powertrain, and then you are converting into hybrid. This is the present definition, but there are certain applications which we are getting. Like for example, there are companies who are talking about series hybrid design for a retrofitment, where you might need to remove the existing engine and replace it with more optimized or smaller engine, so that the engine can be utilized for charging the battery and the electric motor will be the prime mover. So that is a series hybrid configuration. So going forward, we will try to add also. So this limitation we will remove. Like at present, the standard says you should not modify the existing powertrain, and you can add other aggregates like battery, motor, controller, and make it a hybrid. But in future, we will add series hybrid type of vehicle design also in this retrofitment category. Then part 2 is the same hybrid conversion, and it is for above 3.5 ton vehicles. So all M and N category, especially M2, M3, like the smaller buses or 12-meter standard buses, as well as N2, N3 categories. So goods carrier vehicles can be converted. So here also the basic vehicle must be BS2 and above. Why we have put the BS2 and above? Because if it is very, very old vehicle, there are chances that chassis may not be in a proper shape to take all the weight of battery and motor controller. So we have restricted up to BS2 and above vehicles can be converted. And again, the same rule applies, like except CNG or LPG gaseous fuel, all other types of vehicle can be converted. And the basic vehicle should not be having a permit for carrying dangerous or hazardous good. Like for example, if it is used initially on a diesel fuel to carry some dangerous chemicals or any kind of hazardous good as a special permit for that vehicle. So those vehicles we are not allowing right now for retrofitment, because that way per se the number of such vehicles will be very limited. And just to avoid the hazard because of battery or high voltage electricity, we are allowing to permit the normal gasoline or diesel kind of vehicle for non-hazardous kind of application. And the hybrid definition is exactly same. So here also it will be restrictive for series hybrid, but all other types of parallel designs can be made, and those type of rules can be done in this. And the AIS 123 part 3 is a pure electric conversion. So it covers all types of vehicle. It covers all L category vehicles, all M1, M2, M3 vehicles, and all N1, N2, N3 vehicles. So right from smaller vehicle till bigger vehicles can be retrofitted. So idea here is to remove entire the powertrain of the vehicle, like the IC engine, the fuel tank, and the required ECU and other components, and replace with electric kit. The only thing is the vehicle must be manufactured on or after 1st January 1990. And again, the initial basic vehicle should not be having a permission of dangerous or hazardous good carrying. Otherwise, all other types of vehicles can be allowed to convert to pure electric. And the procedure is same, like we have to go for initial kit level approval and then the final vehicle level approval. But since you have seen certain presentations, so there are very good applications, like one of the Shankari discussed, where it's a dual power, or I would say it's a dual mode kind of operation where the conversion is done. So the basic thing is you are keeping the existing powertrain as it is existing IC engine as it is, and you are adding additional electric motor and battery, and the vehicle can run in 2 different modes independently. So it is not a simultaneous operation. So IC engine will run as a IC engine only. Whenever battery is fully charged, the vehicle you can run on pure electric mode. So 2 independent powertrains are functioning. That is also a hybrid, but it's a dual mode, I would say. So present standard structure is not covering, but as I said, there are quite few applications where EMF is working. There are other 2-3 companies who has also approached through different competitions. So they have come up with various design. So we will be shortly bringing an amendment to AIS 123 Part 1 standard, where hybrid of dual mode kind of thing can be done, where independent powertrains can operate separately, and as per need of the user or as per the charge in the battery, the user can run in on IC engine or pure electric mode. So they're trying to avoid the range anxiety kind of thing. In case if the battery is drained, still you have an IC engine with earlier performance, so you can use that vehicle. Now, if you look at the complete tests mentioned in this standard, there are certain tests which I mentioned on the component, and there are certain tests to be done on the vehicle. So the vehicle level test involves the vehicle weighment, because you are adding certain components like motor or battery. So there are chances of the unladen weight of vehicle or GVW might change. So we need to do the weighment of the vehicle. Then cost down, if it is it's optional testing, because these kind of parameters we need for performing the testing on the vehicle on chassis dynamometer, so that performance measurements can be done. So it's optional. Then there is a visual indication, like the kit manufacturer has to provide a fault indicator or SOC indicator within a vehicle, so that the driver can easily identify what is happening with his vehicle. Then there is a gradability test. So gradability test with the modified weight you need to meet, so that if you are adding an electric powertrain, it must have sufficient power so that it can climb a gradient with the increased GVW weight. Then if it is a hybrid, then it has to meet the mass emission test also. Of course, the mass emission limits will be it will be a comparison test. Test of base vehicle will be taken, and the test of retrofitted vehicle will be taken, and the comparison will be done. The result after retrofitment should not deteriorate is in comparison with the initial base measurement. Then there is a brake performance. Since you are changing, you are adding some aggregate, the weight is changing, there might be certain modifications, so the brake performance of the vehicle will be verified. So it's also a part of safety testing. Then measurement of pass-by noise also will be done. Though it is an electric motor, there are chances of increasing the noise of the vehicle. So the kit manufacturer has to meet this requirement also. Then there are tests on the traction motor inverter. So right now there is a motor power test. So recently we have amended the standard, and this red strike through test we have removed from the standard. So those were additional burden to the kit manufacturer, certain kind of environmental testing. So we have focused more on safety and on the performance part of the motor. Then there is a electromagnetic compatibility of test is there, since you are adding a lot of electronics like inverter, motor, or BMS. So you need to comply EMC requirement. The choice is given to the kit supplier. They can meet the test on kit components separately, or they have choice to go for a complete vehicle testing, where the focus of testing will be only for the components which the kit supplier has added. So the kit manufacturer has no responsibility of the older vehicle or older components which are available on that vehicle. Then there is a vertical orientation of dip, which is a one-time activity. Because of weight, there are chances of that headlamp leveling might be required. So it's a one-time setting activity. Then there are certain tests required for construction and functional safety point of view, like how the mounting of the battery or motor or controller is done, the entire vehicle construction, the fitment of all these electric components. So those will be verified in construction and functional safety, in addition to electric shock. Like suppose it's a high voltage battery inverter or cables are there, then there are certain requirements given where you need to meet certain IP requirement like IPX6B or IPX6D, so that the user of the vehicle should not get electric shock while he is utilizing in luggage compartment or maybe in passenger compartment. Then there are safety tests for batteries. In last our similar webinar, we have covered extensive on the safety requirement for the traction battery. So those same standards are applicable for the retrofitment kit also. So the kit supplier has a choice to select the battery which is already approved, or if it's a new design, they can go for a component level approval. And the last were for wiring harness, cables and connectors. So recently we have removed those kind of environmental testing. So we have kept it to the kit supplier. So what we will be looking in this is only high voltage safety part of where color coding or specific insulation will be only checked as a part of the functional safety. Rest of the environmental tests recently we have deleted, so that to reduce the cost of complete type approval of kit as well as vehicle part. And this is the notification. So initially we started drafting this standard in 2014, and in 2016 they got notified. Even there were many questions which I saw and many panelists also mentioned. So in FAME 1 from 2015 to 2019, the retrofitment concept was there, and the incentive was given from the central government under FAME 1 scheme. Almost 30% cost of the kit were paid as an incentive. But in FAME 2, right now the retrofitment is not there. I'm sure, I think if successful cases will be there, definitely the government will reconsider and they might amend the scheme. So right now in FAME 2, it is not there. In FAME 1, it was there. But as Priyakshi mentioned, like many state governments, they have in their scheme, they have started giving incentive for retrofitment, which is a good initiative from the government side. These are some of the examples which we had tested. Like you can see in a 3-wheeler in the rear side, they have removed the engine and replaced with lead acid kind of batteries. This is an older design of 5 to 6 years back. Then you can see in one of the car in the front bonnet, they have removed all engine and other related components and replaced with electric motor and inverter and onboard charger. You can see in one of the design, they have used the fuel inlet as a charging inlet, which is also one of the innovative idea. Like you can put your OBC near to that and use the same inlet as a charging inlet. So these are also some of the designs of the hybrid vehicle. Like you can see in one of the design, the motor is closely coupled to the engine, so that motor can give additional power required to the engine as a torque assist mode kind of thing. And the rear side, they had placed the batteries. And as a test agency, as a certification authority, we always try to support the industry. So we have a center of excellence, and we can help all these startups or tier 1, basically the kit manufacturers, to tune their motors or controllers as per their need to any specific kind of target vehicle. So all such kind of calibration tuning can be supported. We have facilities for batteries, for motors, the complete vehicle performance, as well as structure related thing, as well as environmental testing. We have a special portal also as a part of this FAME 1 initiative, where just to provide the information, easy information to the startups working in this field. So this was from regulatory side, and over to you, Priyakshi, or we can take any questions related to the certification.